Right, good morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you happen to be in the world. I'm really excited today to be talking to another of my ex-students, Mr. Sam Gaskins, who sat SBL in September 2021, and he's performed amazingly, brilliantly, 85%, which in a written subject is particularly hard to do. In my opinion, I think most students would agree. So I've invited Sam along, A, to congratulate him, and also B, to ask him to share some, how, what his journey was like, and what it was that kind of got him to this level of performance. And quite apart from his stellar exam performance, this was also Sam's last exam. So just before we came online, he was saying that he's actually at a bit of a loss as to what to do with all that spare time. But that's a nice problem to have, I think. So welcome, Sam, and congratulations again on your amazing, stellar performance. Well done.
Thank you very much. Greatly appreciated. Yeah, like you said, the last few evenings I've kind of been thinking, hang on a minute, where's all this time come from? Because, no longer having to study, and it's really, really positive.
Yeah, yeah. I was going to say. I mean, okay. So, I mean, it's obvious you're over the moon, understandably. But what is it? I mean, okay, you've got the extra time, but what does that kind of make you feel? Relieved, happy, joyous? I mean, what are the things that you can do now that you couldn't do while you were studying?
I think initially relief was probably kind of the overriding feeling. I think probably over the next couple of weeks, as we're kind of building up to the next block of exams, so later in November, I'll probably be thinking, feeling joyous because I'm not spending my full weekends looking at the book. So that's already positive. And I think overall,
Right.
it's just kind of like quite a good outlook in terms of hopefully career progression within the interim period.
Right, absolutely. So, talking career progression, what tell us a little bit about your role at the moment and
Yeah.
what
So,
that's like.
so I work within an internal audit department at a wealth management company in the UK called St James's Place.
Oh yeah,
It's
I know them.
based in the southwest of England. Head offices in Cirencester, so just outside the Cotswolds. And I've been here I'm just approaching my 3-year anniversary, so kind of waiting on that for ACCA to officially apply to become a member.
Right.
But I joined on a specialist graduate scheme, having gone to university beforehand, studying economics and finance at Cardiff University.
Okay. 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 So, well, okay. There are a couple of things there. So, in terms of your daily routine, what does that look like?
So I basically work as part of an internal audit team of 15 people, I believe it is, working on various audits around the business, following through the planning, the field work, the reporting kind of elements of the piece of work. In terms of experience, that's kind of just increased over time. So my responsibilities on each piece of work kind of have developed as I've got more, experience within the role. And now that I don't have my exams in the way that go out to study on tuition courses, revision courses, it means I'm going to probably have a bit more consistency in the workplace, kind of get more involved into the getting kind of increase my exposure on the pieces of work.
Right. So, I mean, typically, how much time did you have in the day? Sorry, the sun's shining right at me. I'll move slightly out of the way. Excuse me a second.
Yeah, so a typical working day.
Yeah, what's that look like?
Yeah, so 9 o'clock in the morning till 5 o'clock, Monday to Friday.
Right.
And then, there might be an extra half an hour either side in terms of extra workload. But then typically what I was doing when I was revising, going home and then kind of in the evening, spending a couple of hours potentially, have a bit of time to chill out, and then 7:30 to 9:30ish most evenings when I was kind of in the depths of revision. Whereas now, obviously, it's just purely focusing on the job and getting to do more extra kind of curricular, non-working things with my time.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. No, because I'm sure there are a lot of students who are thinking about SBL, sitting SBL, soon, or are in the middle of preparing for the next set of exams in December. And, like you, they're in full-time jobs. And so what worked for you is this kind of a regular, well, hour, 2 hours during the week, and you didn't leave everything till the weekend, even though you've got a fairly busy job, responsible role.
Yeah, no, definitely. Like, the workload at work kind of was fairly steady, but around exam time, it was just a case of taking ownership over, letting the other people in the team know that I am going to be away and I am going to be busy, and they're very, very respectful of that. I was pretty lucky, to be fair, at work. They would fully fund me to go on, a tuition course that would typically be around 6 to 7 weeks out from the exam, followed by a revision course, which would be anything from a month away up until 2 weeks away.
Right.
But also I get support for a mock exam, and also the day before I have the exam, I'd let me have that off as study leave. So that kind of equated to about 10 days of study per module.
Okay.
That was really, really useful just to help balance all of the commitments.
Yeah, I mean, it makes all the difference, doesn't it, when your employer is supportive,
Yeah.
and also when your team is supportive. So I think perhaps one of the lessons that others can take away from this is, if you're working in a team, maybe share with them what you're going through, and most people are ready to help if they can, to ease your burden while you're going through the stress of exams, I guess.
Absolutely. I mean, that's something that I've probably only just kind of worked out how to best manage it. I'm, going back to when I was doing my initial F papers, like some of those, I probably didn't, I took on a few too many responsibilities in the 2 weeks before my exam, or week, and then kind of approaching the last ones, or particularly for the last few exams, I kind of just said, there's no point me really focusing on this until I'm back afterwards.
Right.
It's just kind of in everyone's best interest for me not to take on too much responsibility while I've got, a lot of other things going on besides the working job.
That's brilliant advice, actually, Sam. Recognize that you can't do everything. There are only 24 hours in the day, and the danger of spreading yourself too thinly doesn't. I mean, it doesn't help anybody. It doesn't help you, and it doesn't help your employer, and it doesn't help your exam performance.
Exactly.
So okay, so you mentioned that you done you entered the ACCA after a degree at Cardiff.
Yeah.
Did you get any exemptions, Sam?
I did. I got 5 exemptions. So they were the first 3 preliminary papers, also law and financial management as well.
Okay, okay.
And on reflection, it's an interesting one, because I don't know. I took all of the exemptions myself, partly because I wanted to reduce the number of papers that I had to sit, understandably.
Sure.
But on reflection, I probably, particularly the first 3 interim papers, or the first preliminary papers, I probably could have done with sitting them, because I wasn't very familiar with some of the subject matter. I mean, in the first year, like the first term of my first year, I did introductory to accounting, and I believe that kind of led to the exemptions. But remembering what I did then was, such a long time ago. So simple little things like T accounts and debits and credits. When I came back to everything and I was jumping straight into financial reporting, that exam, I found that really quite difficult, because, it's been quite a while, so I wasn't familiar with it.
So how did you deal with that? Did you do a lot of extra work at home, or what was your approach?
Yeah, so I think it was probably just a case of, going back to basics and spending probably a lot more time on the initial papers on the tuition phase than perhaps I would have. So I had to spend a lot of time of going through the notes and making sure I understood them. Whereas when I got to the latter papers and I was more comfortable with the subject matter, I was diving into questions as soon as possible, because I found that questions was, the best way to replicate what comes up in the exam and get the sort of answers that you need to write. Whereas initially, when I was having to do, your multi-choice sort of questions, I needed to know the subject matter, because there's such a wide spectrum of things that they can ask you on.
Yeah, absolutely. So another brilliant point, actually, because a lot of students, when they need to refresh subjects that they've been exempted from, or or took a while ago, perhaps, spend so much time on sitting there in front, and going through the workbooks, textbooks, but going straight into the questions, knowing that you don't know everything. But you do pick it up, don't you? You say, okay, well, I don't know the answer to that. what is it? And you keep doing that, and eventually the knowledge builds up. And at the same time, you're getting practice at attempting questions. So it's a
Absolutely. And I think one of the other things that when I was practicing questions, initially I potentially look at the answers and expect the model answers to be what I should be coming up with. And then it took a bit of time
right.
to understand, that's not the expectation. But also the debrief of the answers is probably just as important as what you write in the first place.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
the amount of time that I've spent going over videos of somebody else relaying it backwards, that tends to be the approach that worked best for me.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Okay, that's really handy because I mean, coming. We'll come on to SBL in just a second, but as you know, SBL does require some awareness of earlier papers, such as financial management.
Yeah.
And many students are in your position. They've been exempted it or have or took it a while ago, and not sure how to. They don't remember everything. But before we get on to that, Sam, what was it that attracted you to ACCA?
So I wanted to, when I got my graduate career, I wanted to have a qualification that I was going to do alongside, and I thought that accountancy was, a nice and broad one, which I think would kind of fit the bill of what I was looking for. In terms of like then going for, a CIMA, ACA, ACCA, I didn't really know which one to go for. So effectively, what I did was went for the one which my manager sat himself, because kind of he was then best placed to understand what the format of the exam,
Right,
how it
right.
works. But I've got quite a few friends that have been sitting ACA, and we often discuss like the material that they're doing, and it's so similar. So
It
differences
is.
between the two, I often give the analogy. It's like when you're at school and you're choosing different examining bodies. So your AQA, EdXL, OCR in the UK. It's the same subject matter. It's just rehashed in a different format.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. I mean, all three of them and others, of course. There's the Institute of Public Finance Accountants. I think I'm getting that right. All the professional bodies. Typically, this a particular subject will cover similar topics
Yeah.
across and at a similar standard. So not much in it. I mean, it's interesting you say that basically you followed what your boss did or what your boss recommended, and that's often the way students make the decision. Um, for me, the way I did it, I wasn't sure if I wanted to go to audit. My perception, rightly or wrongly, was that if you wanted to go to audit, you should do ACA, and if you wanted to stay in industry, you should do CIMA. But ACCA kind of straddled both areas, so my thinking was, well, we'll I'll have an option, I'll have the choice if I do ACCA. Of course, flawed thinking, but that was my thinking at the time. But yeah, it's interesting. I mean, very few people actually say wake up one morning and say I want to do ACCA. I mean, it's not the first thing that comes to mind when you're considering your career. But yeah, it's interesting hearing how everyone comes. So tell us about SBL, Sam. I mean, had you sat it before?
No, no. So this was the first time I sat it. I just previously finished advanced audit. My other option was advanced tax that I'd done earlier in the year,
Right.
and I didn't really look at any of the subject matter at all until 6 weeks before the exam, and that's when I had the first tuition course. And I've got to be honest, it took a bit of time to kind of get my head around the concept of the exam because it's so different to all of the others. There's not the kind of the calculation side of things. Just the structure of the answers was so different. So probably initially after the tuition, I was a bit confused in my head as to like what I was working towards, what I was trying to achieve. And probably initially I spent quite a lot of time writing out the key models on some flashcards. So like five forces, pestle, staff, whatever that was, suitable. What was it? Suitable, acceptable, and feasible. Yeah, kind of
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
writing out. Gosh, I can remember it still. Writing out all of those frameworks, and then I kind of came back to the revision, and I realised that it's not all about these models and being able to just memorize them. It's about kind of using them to generate ideas and then apply them to the situation. So there was a moment when that kind of clicked in revision, and that became really useful. But still, with these revision cards, I actually I probably only had about 10 of them, but before bed, I would just quickly scan through them and hopefully like each day remember a bit more of them. But yeah, that's kind of
Yeah,
the way that I kind of did the
yeah,
majority
yeah, yeah.
and then question practice from there.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think you've encapsulated it perfectly. I mean, okay, so again, there are a number of things you raise there. The first is the tuition. So it sounds to me as though you're comfortable with the content of the syllabus, right? It's just you weren't sure how it all kind of meshed together
Yeah,
for the
absolutely.
exam. Is that right?
Because I think with the content, there's nothing really new that you learn. A lot of it's just from
Yeah.
previous exams, minor little bits, and then it's a case of bringing it together and finding out how best to articulate it within your answer.
Exactly. And apply it to the scenario.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and then
Mhm.
kind of when it moved on to moving into kind of the latter part, the revision and putting together your answers, that's kind of where the exam technique came out. And just for me, it was taking a step back and trying to fully explain every single point, of adding in the so what and bringing it back to the example where possible, just to kind of add that extra layer of context and then move on.
That's where the real value add is, isn't it? It's okay, so this is a situation, this is my analysis, and this is what it means
Yeah,
to this organization, or whatever. And that's where really you're earning the marks in SPL.
definitely.
Um, I mean, I'm sure you'll agree that, for example, if you compare it to university or academic examinations, it's very different. In university exams, it's state and explain a point or a principle, but in SPL, it's state, explain, and apply.
Yeah, no,
Um,
on that.
and so so okay. That's I mean that's fantastic. So when it came to revision, you say it all came together when you actually started practicing the questions. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. So kind of that
Okay.
was sort of taking it to the next level. Something which I've struggled to be honest, at all exams that I've ever taken has been time management. So I'm always writing until the very, very end. So kind of getting that clear approach in my head of how I was going to tackle it, how I was going to manage my time, that proved to be really, really useful. And partly that was, I believe this is the first and only like 4 hour exam that I've ever sat. I've done loads of 3 hour exams, so I'm kind of
Right.
that extra hour, it's just kind of making sure that you are comfortable in those circumstances. So before the paper, I think I did 3 papers to time, and that was enough. Like I wouldn't do any more than that. You don't need to.
No.
Because it's draining whenever you do one. You'll do a morning, but I found that I couldn't really work in the afternoon at all. I was kind of done for the day because the
Sure.
focus you have to put in for that was so intense. But no, that was kind of a good opportunity to work out how I was going to do my prep time in the exam and how I was going to view the exhibits and what worked best for me. So I tried a couple of combinations and then kind of took it from there.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Because we all work differently, don't we? And
Absolutely.
as you know, when I teach, I say here is a framework. Now adapt it
Yeah.
to something that works best for you, and you obviously managed to do that. So how did you? I mean, how much time did you spend on your planning and so on at the beginning?
So I always used to split it as the first hour. I wouldn't write any of the questions in terms of like a formal approach. I would make some notes. But when I first got into the exam, probably the first thing I'd do was on the scrap piece of paper you get is make a table and just put the question numbers on one side, the number of marks, and then the maximum amount of time you should have on that question. And I'd do that
Brilliant.
countdown clocks to say, when you have 2 hours 40 left, you must have finished question one. And then you move on to the next one. And then that means that you get adequate coverage across all of the different parts. So
Right.
that was kind of a key point for me to begin with. And then after that, I'd read the case study for a bit of context just to understand what it was kind of asking for. And that might be exhibit one. And then copy the requirements over into the web processor, highlight the key points so that I know that I must answer, that this second part of the question because you might miss it otherwise. So I'd do that. And then it would be a case of going, so that would typically take about 10 minutes, just reading through the first exhibit
Right.
and putting the question requirements into the word processor. Then after that, I'd probably spend about 20 minutes reading through all of the actually no, probably about 30 minutes reading through all of the exhibits and highlighting the key points, just in the back of my mind, kind of thinking, okay, there was a question about this, so that's going to
Right.
be relevant there. And then of my first hour, that would leave me with around 20 minutes. And what I would do is go through question by question and start writing a plan for every single question. So by a plan, I'm saying like, a bullet point with a couple of keywords. So
Yeah.
for example, it could be, what are the strengths of something, and you might write out like, I don't know, pestle or whatever, and just put the heading.
Right.
You write starting a couple of keywords that will prompt you. So when you come back to it, you kind of use the words that are already there as your guide and flesh it out, rather than doing a guide and just keeping the guide. You build the guide out, and that becomes your answer.
Absolutely. I mean, that's really textbook what I teach, isn't it? I mean, it's exactly what I suggested. So clearly it worked. You were able to make it yours, and but it's brilliant. And I mean, the time discipline is something I just want to highlight, because that's, you said it's very long, the
Yeah.
exam, and B, you were quite, you were quite definite as to when you had to stop each answer. Did you have any problems with moving on? I mean, were you tempted to say, well, and I'm out of time, but I want to just say a couple more things? Did you ever find that?
Naturally, there are certain points in the paper when you can pick up speed. So often there's a question on presentation slides. And I always found that in terms of the time that was available, I could normally do that bit a little bit quicker than I could perhaps other parts of the paper. So I was able to kind of initially, maybe I'll be a couple of minutes behind, but I know that kind of in the back of my mind, there's a quicker question coming up. And then I could use that as a way to kind of gain time and use it to my benefit. Oh, you've disappeared. Oh, I'll wait to see whether Ashim reappears. Just check he hasn't messaged me. Oh, he said that he's having internet problems.
Good Lord.
You're back.
God knows what happened there.
No idea.
Because
Your face started to freeze, and I was thinking, is he still there? Is he not? Not sure.
I had exactly the same experience. I thought, my God, maybe he doesn't like this question very much.
Yeah, I decided to purposely freeze myself.
Yeah, I'm not answering that. So yeah, no, we'll just we'll edit the recording and get it done. Anyway, what was I saying? Yeah, so my question was, did you have any problems with your time discipline?
Yeah, so when I was sitting the paper, I always found that, well, naturally there's a question, or typically there is one, on presentation slides. And I always found that that was a point where I could probably pick up a little bit of time compared with the other ones. And I typically would, the first question would take a little bit longer than the others. So I might be, a couple of minutes behind at the start, but knowing that kind of with that question coming up, I should be able to bring it back on track.
Right.
When I got to the very end of the paper, I didn't have time to have a look through and check my answers. And to be honest, I don't think, I was going through like quite thorough as I was going. So I don't think there were any major mistakes earlier on in the paper. So I kind of had that comfort that I'm better off just progressing through the paper rather than rushing through, so that I can give myself 10 minutes to read through the paper. Because in that 10 minutes, I don't think you're really going to add any marks to what you've already written.
No.
So it was
I
a case
think that's
of
absolutely right.
using all the time that you have available to go through once, rather than kind of duplicating time.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, be systematic,
Yeah.
right? Take your time and make your points, and then move on. But you're absolutely right. 4 hours seems like a long time from the outside,
Yeah.
but when you're in the middle of it, it's not. It's exhausting, but it goes quickly, doesn't it?
Yeah, no, definitely. And I mean, on the previous papers, the particularly the strategic level ones, I would often not question spot. I'd read through the questions and think, okay, I prefer doing this question first, so I'm going to use my time on that one and then come back. Whereas with FBL, it's just a case of number one through to whatever it is, number four,
Absolutely,
just
yeah.
work the whole way through. And I think, yeah, that with SBL, the one thing actually with all of the strategic level exams, the hardest thing is often managing the exhibits and trying to keep it all open on one screen. That's probably one of the biggest struggles. So a way that you can try and minimize what you have open by, if you work through the requirements, often they match up with like exhibit one will be the first.
Right.
So you can kind of get rid of documents as you kind of move through the paper. So I found that useful.
That's great advice actually, because yes, it can get a bit messy on the screen and confusing.
Yeah.
You know, and under exam conditions, you don't want to be searching for the right piece of paper or exhibit to be looking for.
And that was another thing I tried to do whenever I was sitting on mock paper. I would try and sit it on my single screen, small screen, rather
Right.
than becoming comfortable with two screens, because it's not a true reflection of what it would be like in the real thing.
Yeah. Okay. Good point. Yeah, because yeah, I know that some students like doing it on two screens, but absolutely do it on one.
Yeah.
So now you've got this under your belt. You've got a week you said, yes, before you can apply for your
Yes,
letters.
yes. My anniversary is the beginning of November for work, so it's the
Oh
end of
gosh.
next week. End of next week, I'll be able to submit my, I think it's your PER records,
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
of having evidenced it for 3 years in the workplace. I've done the 9 performance objectives, done the exams, done the ethics module, and
Yeah,
it's at that time that I need.
excellent. So I know we were talking again before we started online. We were talking about your plans for the future. So would you like to share what they are again?
Yeah, no, I think at the moment I'm kind of just kind of enjoying the result of the festival, and then working out where I want to go. I think ideally I'd like to work towards a promotion within my team, and then kind of look for opportunities and see what there is to do. I mean, like I said, ACCA, the reason I took it is because it is this broad qualification that can kind of open up a lot of doors within financial services, and that's where I would like my career to be. But yeah, I haven't really thought too far ahead just yet. Kind of soaking it in and first of all, waiting to actually become an official member before getting carried away.
Sure. Well, yeah, I mean, there's no rush. You can take your time. It's not going to go anywhere. You're always going to have it. I mean, that's the wonderful thing about it. An enormous investment, but a great return as well, which is what it's all about, really. So for all the students who are about to sit SBL or are preparing to sit SBL, is there any advice, are there any recommendations you might give to them?
I think I would definitely do probably at least 1 or 2 papers to time. Like, I think you need to replicate the environment as much as you can. But then after that, what I often found was quite a useful skill was, if I was looking at a mock paper, I would do the first hour as if it's the first hour of my exam. So I'd do the planning and I'd write the notes as if I'm writing my answers, but I wouldn't like flesh out all of the answers, because
Right.
that's so time consuming. So then what I would do is compare the notes that I've got with like the headline or the mark scheme, kind of what are the key points that you're looking for, and then adding those missing points into my answer, to just trying to help with idea generation when you come around to sit in the real paper.
Excellent. Excellent technique,
The
actually.
other point there was just doing that thorough debrief of questions. So I think I mentioned earlier, just
Yeah.
watching recordings. I find that really useful when somebody verbally goes through their answer and says, this is where the mark came from, this is where it didn't. That just helps you to kind of get the understanding of what the marker is thinking of, and kind of how to get into their perspective.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely critical, actually. No, that's and I really like this idea of yours of kind of just doing the plan.
Yeah,
Because as you say, writing a full answer is hugely time consuming,
yeah,
and doing it this way, you could probably do that plan and your comparison and look at the marking scheme, within, I don't know, an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours,
yeah.
and so you can fit that comfortably in at the end of the working day, can't you, without feeling too exhausted?
Yeah, no, I definitely did on occasion do in one evening. I'd mock up my answer and then go through it. and that wouldn't be too onerous. But if you're going to commit 4 hours to a paper every time, it's not feasible. And
No,
also, given the structure of the paper, you have to get your head around all of the exhibits to actually answer the question. You can't really do like a half-hearted just do part one, because you might as well look at all of the questions.
absolutely. Yeah, and that's an idiosyncrasy of this exam, isn't it? It's it's not like every question every task is independent. They're all
No,
interdependent.
exactly. Whereas,
So
when I was studying the tax paper, you just focus on a specific question and you
right.
do it all end to end. Whereas, you just feasibly can't do the whole paper in a short sitting.
No, no, it's difficult. But I tell you, Sam, that is so useful for any student that's listening into this. Um, you've been there, you've been at the sharp end, you've had a full-time job, and really the things that struck me of what you said was your technique for your revision, the use of models, or rather limited use of models, which is a major misconception that students have about SPL, that it's all about repeating models.
No, not at all.
It isn't, is it?
No.
Um, and then the regularity of preparing for the exam, and finally um, that it all comes together when you practice past questions.
Yeah, I'd say like probably a month away from the exam, didn't feel prepared at all. And then it's probably 3 weeks onward. That's kind of where it got incrementally better. And that's probably where I, increased my revision a little bit more. So, I always had Friday evenings off. That was quite a key thing in my head. Just, you don't work on Fridays.
Sure.
And then probably every evening plus probably the equivalent of probably a full day or 4 to 5 hours at the weekend for the last 3 to 4 weeks.
Right, right. Which is brilliant. I think the consistency is really critical, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because some students are tempted to leave everything to the weekend, um, and yeah,
But it's just as important to go outside and get some fresh air. When during the weekend, I've taken up, not particularly well, I've taken up golf. One of my friends he's going through the ACA exams at the moment, we'd work we'd work in the morning and then go play golf in the afternoon, and that was kind of a good opportunity just to clear your head, do
right.
something completely different, switch off, and then you're ready to go the next day.
I think that is also so important because it's about balance.
Yeah.
We do need that. Otherwise, we're intellectually inefficient if we're constantly just hitting the books.
Yeah,
We
absolutely.
do need to give ourselves a bit of a break. So thank you again, Sam, for all of your input and your guidance and advice for students. Congratulations.
Thank you. No, thank you for
And
your help. It's much
I,
appreciated.
you're very, very welcome, Sam. It's delighting. I'm delighted to see that I was able to contribute to your performance. It makes me very happy. But you're the one that did the work, so kudos is yours. Um, so yeah, so thanks again for that, and please keep us informed what's going on, what you finally decide, and the next time I receive an email from you, I expect to see the letter ACCA after your name at the bottom.
Yes, yeah, potentially.
All right. Okay, well, I'm going to stop recording now.
Thank you.